For Honor is a game with various different, unique, and fun characters to play and master. And then there's Conqueror. Conqueror is in the weirdest state of any hero in the game. He is weirdly imbalanced. He can be very oppressive in the right hands, but very weak in the wrong hands. His playstyle tends to be boring for both the player and the opponent, and is a very frustrating hero to fight against. His moveset lacks basic fundamentals, with little to no unique properties. My idea with this concept is to make Conqueror more viable, especially pushing him to give more of an anti-ganking playstyle, while giving him more options for offense. We'll start by taking a look at Conqueror's heavy attacks. For starters, we will make it to where he can only feint his startup heavies. Chain and charge heavies will not be able to be feinted. However, they can be cancelled into his chain bash and full block. This was something particular about the original Conqueror that I liked. A flail is not a weapon that can just easily be feinted. It's literally a ball on a chain. You essentially have no control over it except for its momentum. This is just something that gives me a little taste of realism, but keeping the feint on starter heavies allows Conqueror to still be viable when you need a feint after attempting a parry or something of that matter. Going back to the original Conqueror, his heavy openers used to also have superior block property on the startup. We'll bring this back from 100 to 300 ms of the attack. Succeeding in a superior block would make the heavy unblockable, allowing you to land it much more easily. Conqueror's chain heavies are strange. You want them to have some kind of property to make it a viable form of offense, but having infinite of some kind of property can be extremely oppressive. This is why as unblockable heavies currently do very little damage, is because having high damage on blockables that you can just consistently throw would be extremely powerful. My suggestion here would be to make his attacks no longer unblockable, but give him a passive to increase the block damage of his heavies. Essentially a passive form of punch through. With this theory, if his chain heavies were, let's say, 25 damage, a blocked heavy would still deal 9 damage. This is enough to where it provides an incentive to maybe parry, but it still allows Conqueror to have viable offense without needing any kind of insane property. Looking at Conqueror's charged heavies, I want to take something that they actually used in the testing grounds, being able to charge your heavies in your chain. This was such a cool concept that I think they could have expanded upon or actually included in the full moveset. With this in mind, we will also return the block to charged heavies while you're charging and the superior block for whenever you release it. This was something that I think had a really good form of skill expression, but was just ultimately scrapped for some reason. In order to counteract this, we will make the heavies deal slightly less damage and take a little longer to finally fly. Conqueror's zone attack could also use some work. For those who don't know or don't remember, Conqueror's zone attack used to have full block properties, and you could just keep holding it for as long as you wanted. The full block was instantaneous, making it an extremely powerful defensive tool, especially with the meta of option selecting. I think this was such a cool concept and will be worth bringing back. However, we'll just make it to where the full block frames start after one swing of the zone. Essentially, you would press zone attack once and do a zone attack. If you pressed it again, Conqueror would continue to swing, gaining the full block properties after his initial swing. At any point, you could do a heavy, a bash, or a light to essentially chain from your zone attack swing into another chained attack. With this concept in mind, Conqueror would also be able to just cancel his zone spin pressing the feint button, ending it after his current swing. I think as well, if he blocks an attack while doing a zone attack swing, it should become unblockable as a way to help disperse opponents. Conqueror's main form of offense is his bashes, whether in chain or simply from dodge. One thing that I think they could do to make them much better is make the bashes lead to either opening lights or opening heavies, removing the flail uppercut or scootage collection from the shield bash. These were cool in concept, but it has caused the damage to be decreased on them significantly, and ultimately just doing bash into scootage collection, bash into scootage collection for an entire team fight is, although effective, an extremely boring way to play. Along with this, we will adjust his in-chain bash to be chargeable, similarly to characters like Warden or Hitokiri. It will start at 700 MS and be charged up to 1300 MS. With these other heroes, they usually gain Hyper Armor at a set point, usually around 1000 MS, to counteract any kind of dodge or just quick interruption. I think a cool instance they could do for Conqueror here would be to give him full block property instead of Hyper Armor. Unlike these other heroes though, a fully charged bash will simply push enemies further back and would still only guarantee a light attack. The idea here is that this one would also wall splat, meaning that if you are close to a wall, you could wall splat and guarantee yourself a heavy. In terms of Conqueror's counterattacks, I think his flail uppercut damage should be increased to 20 and Scutish Collection should be increased to 15. Without them being accessible from a shield bash, the only time he could use them would be a full block or a superior block, so I see no reason why you can't increase the damage to match other heroes' full block counters. The last core component of his moveset that I think needs to be addressed is a roll catcher. If you look anywhere online, this is all people mainly talk about with Conqueror. The fact that the game is 9 years old and its rework was released 3 years ago and we still don't have any kind of roll catcher is beyond me. Whether they decide to do a charging shield bash, something like a Fira, or a full-on overhead lunge, or just give him the Lawbringer treatment and let him just slide towards his opponent, I would take anything at this point. I feel like if you're going to go all out on a Conqueror rework, you should also consider his feats. Conqueror is said to have some of the worst feats in the game, and I can 100% agree with that. So I think a set of unique feats for him would not be a terrible concept. In fact, I came up with a few of my own right here. For starters, before we even get to those, I feel like Shield Basher should be nerfed down to 5 damage instead of 6. It is basically just Haymaker with a different name, and I don't see why it should have any different effect. I've come up with 4 new unique feats to replace some of Conqueror's existing feats to try to give him some more viability. We'll start with a tier 1. I call it Conquering Presence. This would replace Conquer, and is essentially kind of just a better form of it. Current Conquer allows you to capture points slightly faster, and captured boost will also last longer. I want to maintain the same effect, but also make it to where you would regain health 20% faster on a captured point or healing zone. This would not apply to feats like Heal Banner or Champion's Aura, but this would just make it to where you can regenerate your health faster while in a captured zone. For his tier 2 feat, I came up with Targeted Bash. I feel this should replace Juggernaut, as in my opinion Juggernaut is virtually useless now. What I came up with is essentially Warden's Enfeeble or Meje's tier 2. Whenever you bash an opponent, you reduce their damage output for a set period of time. For his tier 3 feat, I came up with Momentum, a replacement for Punch Through. Momentum would make it to where you would gain a small stackable damage buff for every attack you do in chain. So, for every consecutive attack, whether a hit or a miss, you would do more and more damage the more attacks you do, to kind of play into the mentality of using a flail and using momentum. For his tier 4 feat, I came up with Fortified Presence, which would replace his current Uninterruptible. Uninterruptible is not a terrible feat, however, when outnumbered, it proves to be very poor as it does not give you hit stun, so you do not reduce damage. I think it should keep the same uninterruptible effect, however, you should gain 30% damage reduction and also gain infinite stamina. Essentially a full defensive and offensive powerhouse, but just for yourself. And that is the definition of insanity. In all seriousness, if you stuck around to the end and listened to everything I had to say, I greatly appreciate it. Let me know what y'all think in the comments down below, and if we want to, we can start a betting pool for whenever Conqueror will finally get his roll catcher. I'm saying Year 10 Season 2. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.